Shalom WJC family. This week we are studying Parshat Ki Tisa in synagogue, Parsha most famous for the inclusion of the sin of the golden calf. If the revelation at Sinai we read about a few weeks ago, or the Exodus from Egypt a few weeks before that, are the pinnacle of the story, this might be the lowest ebb. Just after this great revelation and being able to see God and know God face to face, we are set upon by sin. The people are waiting for Moses to come down from the mountain, and they get impatient and they create this golden calf, or more particularly and importantly for our talk today, get Aaron to make the golden calf, and they worship it as an idol, as the idol that took them out from Egypt. Today, the question that I want to explore is, what does God want with us? Why would God want to know us if we are so easily led astray, if we are so easily led to sin? The story of the Torah, as Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel so beautifully pointed out, is God in search of man, God in search of us. The role of the Jewish people is to be in relationship with God. But what does God want with this people who fall so quickly into off the path that God is laying for us? Of course, it's not just the Jewish people, it's all people. And the answer to that question can be found by looking deeply at this Torah portion. So first of all, it's a question of when. When did this in fact happen? Right? So far in the Torah, we had the story of the Exodus, the revelation at Sinai, and then for the last few parshas, we've been looking at laws, civil laws in Parshat Mishpatim, and then in Truma and Tetzaveh, rules about the creation of a mishkan, a tabernacle in the desert, and this beautiful garb, this beautiful clothing for the priests, for Aaron and his children. And then we get to the golden calf. But right before we do, so the golden calf story is Exodus chapter 32. The very verse before it, the last one in chapter 31, we read, Vayitein et Moshe kekalto. Upon finishing with him on Sinai, God gave Moses 2 tablets of the pact, stone tablets inscribed with the finger of God. And Rashi, the medieval Jewish commentator, medieval Ashkenazic commentator in Provence around the year 1100, says on this verse, just before the golden calf is about to happen, Ein mukdam umeuchar ba'Torah. There is no before and after in the Torah. What does he mean? He means that the Torah is written as a narrative in human language, and sometimes in a narrative in human language, events are written not necessarily in the order that they happen. In fact, sometimes events happen simultaneously, and you can't put on a piece of paper how that works. So you have to sort of organize your narrative, organize your story, organize your text by some principle other than time. And Rashi says the Torah is no different from other texts. And so the Torah is not organized chronologically, and sometimes for one reason or another, things are written out of order. Here he says that the golden calf story that's about to happen does not come right after being given the laws of the tabernacle, which immediately precede it. There is no mukdam earlier or meuchar later, no chronological order in the events of the Torah. In fact, Rashi says, the incident of the golden calf happened a considerable time before the command regarding the tabernacle, even though the golden calf happens in chapter 32 and the tabernacle first is mentioned back in chapter 25. And he gives a whole sort of logical reason why this would be the case. But it's very, very important. Some commentators, I first read it in Leon Kass, but there's others, I'm sure, say that this is important because it explains why we are commanded to build a mishkan at all. That the building of the tabernacle is, in fact, a response to the sin of the golden calf. God realizes that the people need to feel the presence of God, or a God, preferably for God, more closely. And so they, the tabernacle and the sacrificial system and God's dwelling there among the people is in fact given as a remedy for the sin of the golden calf. But how could that be? Think about that. After the sin of the golden calf, it would seem to me that the last thing God would want to do is to dwell among this people. As a matter of fact, the text it says, God's going to send an angel to lead the people, and Moshe has to argue with him to say, no, God, you have to go before the people. But when Moses does that, he builds a special tent outside the camp. God doesn't even want to be inside the camp. God is so angry, and the people are so ashamed. So why does this happen? Why would the Torah report this terrible incident that seems to disqualify the Jewish people from their closeness to God? And an additional question worth exploring: why would Aaron, the one who actually was the leader of this band, maybe reluctantly, there's a lot of commentary, the way the chapter 32 is written, it's not clear, but it seems like he's the one who made the idol. How does he, in particular, end up becoming the high priest? So there's a beautiful explanation of this in the Kli Yakar, Shlomo Ephraim Lunchitz, the Kli Yakar who lived in Prague, 1604 to 1619. He lived a little earlier, but was the chief rabbi of Prague. He says, commenting on another pasuk, he says, "V'ata." So this is a pasuk, a verse from last week's parsha, from Titzaveh, when Aaron is appointed. It says there, "And you bring close Aaron, achicha mitoch b'nei Yisrael," your brother from among b'nei Yisrael. And he's commenting, why does it say achicha mitoch b'nei Yisrael? Why does it say Aaron, your brother from among Israel? We already know at this point in the Torah that Aaron is Moshe's brother and that he's an Israelite. So it seems odd. These are extraneous words. We don't like extraneous words. And what the Kli Yakar points out, he says that Aaron is especially fit to be the high priest. Why? Because he has the potential of being a great person. He is your brother, Moshe, both literally, but also in that he could be a great leader of the Jewish people. However, he says, mitoch b'nei Yisrael. Why mitoch b'nei Yisrael? Why from among the Jewish people, from b'nei Yisrael? Because he is also one of them. You, Moses, you grew up like a prince. You grew up in Egypt like a prince. You're not like the other Israelites. And that has made you uniquely suited to be a leader of the Jewish people through this Exodus. But now we want to put somebody in the gap between me and the people. And that person can't be a prophet like you. It can't be a prince like you. It has to be someone who has that potential of leadership. Your brother, in this case literally, but also spiritually, but also who understands sin, who understands the burden of persecution, the burden of having been enslaved and persecuted, right? Who has to know what it means to be a Jewish person. And that person, the Kli Yakar points out, is Aaron. In fact, being involved in the sin of the golden calf is exactly what makes him qualified to be in relationship with God. And the sin of the golden calf perpetrated by the people are also exactly what made the Jewish people prepared to be in relationship with God. Why? Because relationships don't demand perfection on behalf of the partners. There's no such thing. In fact, sometimes it is the sin that is the way in. It is the flaw where people really connect. How many relationships, in fact, are based on people who, one way or another, got in each other's way? Or once a relationship was created, there was some kind of falling out. Someone did something wrong, lied, there was betrayal. And then ultimately, after reconciliation, they were closer than ever. Here, the sin is the way in. it is God comes to dwell in the Mishkan after the relationship is repaired by Moses in his tent outside the camp. God does come back and dwell among the people. The people, as flawed as they are, God accepts their flaws. In fact, God reveals God's Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, God's 13 attributes of love to the people, to Moses. As a response to all of this, we learn that God is merciful and God is compassionate. We learn something about God. God comes to understand something about the flaws of people, which God understood already. Right? This goes all the way back to the garden. Why did God put a tree in the garden that would be too tempting for Adam and Eve to resist? Maybe God wanted them to eat the apple. That relationship begins in our understanding that God understands our flaws. And with our flaws, maybe even because of our flaws, God wants to connect with us. God wants to be in relationship with us. Aaron is the ultimate symbol of that, and so are we. We also live with the pressures of being Jewish in a world that is often inhospitable. We also understand what it is to be persecuted and even killed, hated for nothing more than being Jewish. And yet we step forward because it is in that pressure and that pain, and even when we fail because of that pressure and that pain, even when we sin because of that difficulty, we are able to find the beauty and the holiness and to once again be raised up because of the relationship with God, because God wants to be in relationship with you. God wants to be in relationship with us. God wants to be in relationship with all of humanity. Not because God expects perfection from us, the opposite. It is the flaws from which that relationship's flourished. And so I pray that we're all able to accept ourselves with our flaws, to accept each other with our flaws, to see those moments of disappointment and pain as opportunities for growth and connection with the people in our lives who we love and who we like and who we want to be in deeper relationship with, and even with that which is divine in the world, that which is holy. May we all find the fortitude, the strength, the vulnerability to enhance our human relationships and our holy relationships in that way on this holy Shabbat to come. Shabbat Shalom.